A dark web of corruption, abuse of power, and a system that tried to silence a mother who refused to be broken. In 1928, Los Angeles was a city booming with promise, but beneath the surface, something far more sinister was taking root. Because on a quiet Saturday morning, Christine Collins handed her 9-year-old son Walter a dime for the cinema and watched him walk out the door. She would never see him again. What followed wasn't just a missing child's case. It was a nightmare, one that spiraled into deception, police misconduct, psychological abuse, and a truth so horrific it would shake California to its core. Because this case doesn't stop with one missing boy. It unravels into something much darker, something buried beneath a remote chicken ranch in Wineville, where investigators would uncover evidence of crimes so twisted, so depraved, they still haunt true crime history to this day. At the center of it all is a mother who refused to accept a lie, a woman whose voice was dismissed, ridiculed, and ultimately became so powerful it forced an entire city to confront its own corruption. And at the edge of this nightmare stands a name that would become synonymous with pure evil: Gordon Northcott. I won't lie to you, this case is one of the darkest I've ever researched. It gets under your skin. It stays with you. And in ways I didn't expect, it hit close to home. But within all that darkness, Christine Collins stands as something else entirely. A force, a fighter, a light that refused to go out amidst a sea of darkness and utter despair. So if you're ready, let's talk about Christine, her missing son Walter, and the horrifying truth behind the Wineville Chicken Coop murders.
Hello, friends and family. Welcome back to another episode of Weekly Bizarre. I'm Montana.
I'm Jessica.
And if you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. We've been waiting for you.
We've been waiting.
On our podcast, we hang out and we dive into the bizarre, the spooky, and the things that just feel a little too weird to be coincidence. From true crime and paranormal encounters to unexplained mysteries and everything in between, we uncover the stories that don't quite fit anywhere else. Each week, we take turns doing the deep dive research while the other reacts, speculates, and unpacks the story as being told in real time. So, if you like weird shit and chill vibes, you're in the right place. Make sure to follow and subscribe, and we're here every Sunday. I didn't know I was sitting here with Elvira today.
Yeah, I thought I was going to get away with wearing a dark wig, but it looks very wiggy. We're just going to have to go with that too.
Literally Elvira vibes. If you're on YouTube, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's really just Jessica vibes, but hey.
Elvira copies off of Jessica, let's be real.
So this case, man, this has pulled and tugged at my heartstrings so many times. It's been an emotional roller coaster. I have cried so many times. And I feel like I have to put a disclaimer, trigger warning, whatever you will, at the beginning of this, because this is not for the faint of heart. This does involve children, which I literally was just talking about is like the hardest thing for me when it comes to what we do. And I just kind of stumbled upon this through the Changeling stuff and had no idea that it was going to be so focused around children and SA of those children, abuse, torture, things like that. It's brutal. So completely understand if that's not your thing. If you can't handle it, we'll see you for the next one. You might want to click away, might want to just go listen to somebody else. But if not, there is some really good and uplifting stuff to the story. So it is worth a listen if you can handle the dark stuff. Just putting it out there.
Okay, so I don't have a choice, is what you're saying.
Well,
Cool.
I will say too that I do not go into great detail about what happens to these children just because I don't think it's necessary to do. I mean, it's just too much. So I will graze over that, but more of it is focused around Christine Collins, the disappearance of her son. We will talk a bit about Gordon um, Northcott, who is the one who did all these horrible things. And there's a lot more to the story than just what happened to the children. Not that I want to minimize that in any way, but just so you know, I don't focus heavily on it. So it's a little easier to digest.
So is this true crime and supernatural?
No,
No, just true crime?
just true crime.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know the whole changeling.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys were here a couple of episodes ago, I said I was going to be doing a new series about changelings, and this story was made into a movie, and it was based off the premise of a changeling, because you'll see in a little bit a son goes missing and is replaced by another boy that isn't him. So it's like the idea of a changeling, but there's nothing supernatural about it. So it's just inspired by the premise of a changeling. So I also want to say something else before we really get into it. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of the story, I'd like to talk a little bit about the main characters here. It's easy to get focused on the killers in these stories, like they're the main characters, but they're not. It's the victims, the ones whose lives were ripped apart by these monsters, that should really be the central focus of these stories. And though it is necessary to give backgrounds and knowledge about these murderers, they don't get to be the main character in our stories here. And moving forward, any stories that I tell that are about a family who's been ripped apart by one of these heartless killers, I'm going to remind you guys that it's always about the victims, always about honoring their memory in a respectful way. So that being said, let's start with Christine.
Amen.
So Christine Collins was born in 1888. She lived in LA during the Roaring 20s. She worked as a telephone operator, which she was actually a supervisor. So she was pretty high up. She was really good at what she did. And she was part of the growing class of independent women in the 1920s. It must have been a very exciting time to be alive as a woman then, seeing your future in a different light, breaking away from traditional Victorian values. Recording numbers of women were entering the workforce, moving beyond the domestic role. So that had to be a really cool time for women, like feeling more independent, feeling like they had value outside of the house. And Christine absolutely did. She was amazing in many different ways. I am very fond of Christine, if you can't tell. Very fond of her. She was very determined, very business-minded, and not easily intimidated by authority. She was very emotionally controlled too, which they really did a good job of showing that in the movie, which I highly recommend watching. It was phenomenal and heart-wrenching, I must say. But Angelina Jolie plays Christine, and she did a fantastic job. Honestly, she did great.
And it's called Changeling?
It's called Changeling, yes.
Gotcha.
I had to rent it to watch it, so, and it doesn't look like it's free anywhere right now. You might be able to find it, but what I have, I couldn't watch it for free, but I was willing to pay, baby, because it's for what we do here, and it was.
I didn't want to watch it.
It's good.
I want to watch it, but I think I'm going to watch it after this episode because I didn't want to know anything.
Yeah, it's still, like, even after I did all the research, I watched it, and it was still so good. Like, it doesn't really take away from it at all. If anything, it kind of adds to it when you know what's going on. That way you can, like, place the characters and put faces to names and all of that. The cast was great. They did a good job. So for some context about Christine and just her character in general, which was great. She was single, so she was divorced, And this was unusual back then. So this just wasn't a common thing in the 20s and was looked down upon usually. But despite this, she was rocking it. Like, she was maintaining a stable household in a middle class suburb. Like, she was doing well for herself, and she was focused on giving Walter, her son, the most normal life possible, even though his dad wasn't present. And he sounds like a real piece of shit, to be honest. Like, I guess there could be worse things that he was involved in, but her ex-husband's name was Walter J.S. Collins. So he was Walter Sr. And he had been convicted of robberies. And so he was put in jail at this time. He was in prison serving time. He was connected to running a speakeasy. It was the Prohibition era, so things like that were illegal. So yeah, he was doing all that bullshit and was arrested. And she was like, you know what? I'm done with your ass. I can do it on my own. And she did.
What a guy.
But he was incarcerated in Folsom State Prison, which left her as the sole provider, and she rocked it. So the neighborhood that they lived in was Mount Washington, Lincoln Heights, and this was a suburb of Los Angeles. And like I said, it was middle class, and the bond between Christine and her son was very strong. Like, she was such a dedicated mom to him, and he was equally fond of her. Like, they were very close, which is a given considering they're all each other had, you know, like they were very, very close.
Right.
He was born in September of 1918, and he was 9 when he disappeared. 9 years old. Yeah. So Walter was known to be quiet, polite, well-behaved. He was described as a happy lad, and everything was pretty ordinary with him. Like, he was not known to have any behavioral issues. He wasn't known to run off or anything like that. So when he did go missing, it was very unusual. It was very unlike him to do that. He was a good boy. She raised him well. She raised him with manners.
Despite his father.
Yeah. That probably fueled her, you know, like, you're not going to end up like that. We're going to be behaved. So LA in the 1920s was experiencing rapid growth and expansion, and it transformed from a quiet agricultural town into a bustling metropolis, which, when this happens, typically causes a rise in organized crime, corruption, which is a huge part of the story, vice, which is criminal syndicates bribing law enforcement or politicians to ignore operations like gambling, prostitution, narcotics, illegal alcohol, you name it. They're just bribing them to turn and look the other way. And it was happening. It was happening big time.
Please, am I right?
Yeah, seriously. So the LAPD, again, like I said, corruption was known. It was known that things were going down that shouldn't be going down. It was led by James E. Davis, who had the nickname Two Gun Davis, which is stupid. Such an asshole. I hate him.
Maybe he has a small dick.
He has a tiny, tiny little nub. He has to.
Nub.
But yeah, little nubbins. That's what we'll call him from now on. Nubbins. But he had the reputation of brutality, obviously corruption, public distrust. He was known for creating the gun squad. And get this shit is crazy. So he put 50 officers on this squad, and their sole purpose was to go out and shoot suspected criminals, dead, not alive. So that was the gun squad.
Anybody.
Pretty much, yeah. Anybody that they suspected was doing something they shouldn't be doing, go kill them. Go ahead. It's fine. Perfectly fine.
Wow.
The abuse of power in this story is maddening. Like, it sickened me. I was seething sometimes reading this shit, watching the movie too. It's like, especially after I knew, and then I got to have a character to look at and really hate. It's like, oh my God, I just can't believe this shit. Can't believe it.
Was it someone famous?
I didn't recognize him. No, but John Malkovich is in the movie. I really like him. He actually played Gustav Breglib, who has a huge role with Christine. We'll get to it in a minute. Getting ahead of myself here. We love Gustav, yes.
Okay.
All right, so let's zoom in on March 10th of 1928. This is the day that Walter disappeared. So I don't know exactly, like there are some murky details with this, so I'm going to do my best to paint a picture. Walter wanted to go to the cinema. So I believe that Christine couldn't go with him because of work. I didn't see that in any of my research, but that's how they portrayed it in the movie, which is not saying that that's actually true. But for one reason or another, it was a Saturday. She couldn't go with him. He went alone. And this was something that was routine for them. So it wasn't unusual for her to send him off safely to the cinema and he would return home. So it was just another day. And when she got home, or maybe if she was home and she waited and was expecting him to be home, he didn't come home. He wasn't there. So initially she didn't freak out too much, but again, this is not like him at all. He's very well behaved. He knows to be home when he's supposed to be home. So she starts looking around the house, calling out his name. He's nowhere to be found. So she goes out to the streets and starts asking neighbors if they've seen him, just going to all the places that he could typically be. And he was nowhere to be found. She made phone calls asking if people had seen him. Nothing. So by the end of the night, she was beside herself. Like, she was freaking out at this point. She's like, this is not my son. He doesn't do this. So she calls the police. And this is something that happens all too often in these stories as well, is when somebody goes missing and whoever it is, a friend, a loved one, calls and reports them missing, it's always the same thing. It's like, oh, they'll be home soon. We don't want to panic right away. Probably just ran away. Maybe he wandered off and got lost. They usually turn up. It'll be fine. Plus, we can't do anything for 24 hours. Which is not true, by the way. That is absolutely not true as far as I know. You can start looking for a missing person immediately. It doesn't have to be 24 or 48 hours of them being gone. Because let's face it, those 24 or 48 hours are like the most critical hours when somebody goes missing. If they can be saved, that's typically when it's going to happen. And from everything I've seen in this case, that could have been true had they taken her seriously and had they started looking for him sooner. And then again, it just gets worse and worse. I feel like he probably could have been saved. I'll leave it at that for now. Put a pin in it. We'll get back to it. But so they tell her, I can't even imagine as a mother sitting there. It's about time for bed. You're on the phone with the police. You're like, he's not home. This isn't like him. And they're like, it's fine, ma'am. He probably just ran off. He'll be home. We can't do anything until tomorrow night because it's 24 hours. And then to hang up the phone and just sit there, like, could you imagine? Like, I would be out roaming the streets all night, probably.
Isn't it different now with children, though? Like with children under a certain age, they take seriously.
I think that's why the Amber Alert happened. And that is based off of a missing child named Amber. I think that law was passed because it was just getting to a point of ridiculous. Like, it needs to be immediate. But I know that still it's probably older people, but even older people, you don't have to wait 24 hours. So I don't know.
Well, it's like even solving a crime. That's what they have the show 48 hours. And they say they try to solve it in 48 because if you don't solve it in 48 hours, chances are you're not going to solve the case.
Exactly. Yeah. Or they're not going to be found alive. So yeah, I can't imagine what that night was like for her. I mean, the rest of her life really, but that was ground zero and had to be horrifying.
Parents' worst nightmare.
Yeah. So after the 24 hours, and clearly he doesn't show up, they get involved. The LAPD gets involved. And before you know it, this case blew up in the media and quickly became a citywide concern. And it ended up including civilians along with the police. They were sweeping the streets, vacant lots, parks, neighborhoods, everywhere, searching for him. It just kept gaining momentum and popularity. And I believe this was because not long before Walter went missing, there had been another really horrible incident with a child that had happened. And I think because of that, it was taken a little more seriously by the public, at least, because they're like, oh shit, this is happening again. And what that was, there was a little girl named Marion Parker. She was 12 years old. And she had been kidnapped for ransom, I guess. And then she was murdered. She was dismembered. And her body was dumped and found like that. So he was eventually caught. His name was William Edward Hickman. He was eventually caught, but I'm not sure if he was caught before Walter went missing or after. I'm not sure. But nonetheless, that's probably why this gained momentum so quickly, because shit was already happening. Things were already happening that just raised alarm bells with the public anyway.
Yeah.
So the
public.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So they also dragged Lincoln Park Lake, which I didn't know what that meant exactly. So I looked it up, like dragged. I mean, I had an idea, but that's where they pull heavy grappling hooks or nets across the bottom to snag bodies or whatever. But they found nothing.
I've never heard that.
I hadn't either. I'm like, what does that mean? And I thought at first that it was a typo. So I'm like, dragged? Don't they mean drained?
That's what I thought.
If you didn't know, now you know. You're welcome, guys.
You teach me something new every day.
Something I forgot to mention is there was somebody at some point along the way that said they had seen Walter the night he disappeared. And the last time that he was seen was around 5 p.m. And it was very close to where he lived, but that was never confirmed nor denied or anything. It was just, I think it was a neighbor who said they had seen him, but nothing ever came of it. Just want to put that in there.
You know what I just realized? That when this episode comes out on Sunday, it's going to be Mother's Day.
Oh, fabulous. Oh, no.
Perfect timing.
Leave it to me, man. Leave it to me. Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
From the girls at Weekly Bazaar.
This is Jessica's doing. What am I doing? What is Jessica's?
Mm-hmm. Ay. Moving on. Gotta keep going forward.
We're already here, Elvira. Let's go.
So this is the part of cases too that sometimes it can be helpful, but it seems like most of the time it's just not. And that's tips coming in. And they were getting a lot of tips, and none of them were good tips. They were coming in from Glendale, San Francisco, other surrounding areas, just all over California. And there was even somebody reported in Glendale that they saw Walter with a man and a woman in the backseat of their car at a gas station. And he was wrapped in newspaper with only his head exposed. But then the car sped off before they could catch them. But again, it was a dead end. Nothing came of it. And it was probably just people trying to get attention or trying to get paid, which they wouldn't have. But yeah, it's the shitty part about stuff like this is it's wild how many times people will call in and say that they did it or something just to mess with the investigation. Like, wow, okay.
Yeah, that's why they don't release all the facts about a case.
Yeah, which is smart. Very smart. So yeah, nothing came of that. And then Walter's father, Walter Sr., had his own theories on what may have happened to his son. And he thought it could have something to do with his past and that maybe somebody was trying to get revenge on him or get even. And so they took his son. But again, nothing ever came of that either.
Was he still in jail at this time?
Yeah. Yeah, there's really not anything else said about him. So I don't know how long his sentence was, but he's never involved and beyond that. That's it. That's a wrap, son. He's just living the life behind bars. And then if he does get out, he doesn't come around or doesn't get involved in the investigation in any way. So weeks turn into months, and Christine, she's beside herself. Poor thing. She waits by the phone daily. She calls around to different like missing persons or missing children places in different states, or I don't know if it's missing persons, those sections of the police departments that handle those kind of things in different states. She was just calling around and just going crazy, which I would be too. Mm-hmm. I would be too.
I can't imagine. I can't. And
no.
I don't ever want to find out.
So months go by, and this lands us to August, which I believe at this point had been, 5 months since he disappeared. And a breakthrough happens with the case. And this breakthrough happens in DeKalb, Illinois. A boy is detained who claimed to be Walter Collins. He initially gave a different name, but then later changes the story under questioning. It's a whole big mess. It's a weird situation. I'm like, how did this happen? How did a boy from Illinois end up being Walter? Like, how did he get there? What's going on? So they are exchanging letters, phone calls back and forth, trying to determine whether or not this is Walter. And eventually they come to the conclusion that it is Walter. So enough so that Christine is even willing to pay for his train ride to come back to California. And of course, at this point, she's she's desperate to have her son back. So she probably is grasping onto any little hope she possibly can that this could be her son. And the shittiest part about this is the LAPD set up this reunion, but they wanted photographers and reporters to be present for it so that they could document it and show California that they cracked the case. They solved the case. Walter's been found. Let's get photos. Like, could you imagine this mother has been without her son for 5 months, shows up and is waiting in desperation to see him again, and is surrounded by people taking photos of her and asking her questions and in her face. Like, what the hell? Just so they can save face. So the LAPD can save face. Like, look, we didn't botch this. We got it right. It's fine. We found him. He's coming home. It's safe. All is good.
It's not fine.
It's not fine at all. Not fine at all. So the train pulls up. Walter gets off, walks up to Christine, and immediately she's like, that's not my son. I don't think that's my son. He did kind of look like Walter, but I mean, what mother isn't going to know their son, right? Or their child? She's going to know. And like I said, I don't know if I said this already, but I feel like gaslighting at its finest is in this freaking story. It is insane what they do to Christine. Absolutely insane. So yeah, she's like, this isn't Walter. Like, I don't know who this is, but it is not my son. And the leading investigator at the time was J.J. Jones. We hate him too. We hate him a lot.
J name.
Yeah. He's a bad guy. Hey, I've got a J name. Calm down, Brenda.
Sorry, Barbara.
So what he does is he becomes defensive and dismissive of what she's saying, basically. And he's like, oh, you don't know what you're saying. You're overwhelmed. It's been 5 months. He's changed a bit. Kids grow rapidly. Take him home for a couple weeks and try him out.
Try him out?
Try him out.
Wow.
Take him home. Try him out. See things clearly. You're not seeing things clearly right now. This is your son. I'm telling you, this is him. Take him home. Try him out. It'll be fine. Trust me. It's fine. Could you imagine Christine being the amazing person she is and the emotionally controlled person that she is, composes herself, and she's like, all right, I'll take him home and try it out. Even though she knows, she knows it's not her son, but she also knows that she isn't being heard and they don't give two shits. The police are just trying to save face and don't care about her. And she knows it. And it just becomes more and more apparent as we go along to her. She's silenced so many times. It's disgusting.
Well, what sucks too is we didn't have the DNA in the 1920s, so you can't just swab him and be like, oh, it's not Walter, sorry. Or, oh,
exactly.
It's Walter, here you go.
Yeah. And I mean, the little boy is saying he is Walter. So, and I guess it was pretty believable. Because, I mean, they didn't know him. They didn't know the real Walter.
In the movie, are they the same kid?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Gotcha.
They're trying to avoid embarrassment, covering up their mistakes that they couldn't find her son. So they just give her a fake one. She takes him home. And before she goes, they have her pose with him and get pictures so that they can put it in the paper that Walter has been found and he's going back home with his mom. I can't imagine like what would be going through your mind sitting there trying to smile and fake like you're so happy that your son has been returned to you and it's not him. Talk about a mind fuck.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say.
I would not have been that emotionally regulated. I can tell you that right now. I would have been having a fit. I would have been making a scene. Yeah. So this is another reason I have so much respect for her, because so many times she could have done something like that and she didn't. But she did stand up for herself. Just, she didn't cause scenes. She did it the right way. She did it the right way. Not like I would have done.
I think I'm throwing fist over here.
Christine keeps this boy in her home for about 3 weeks, which kudos, man. Kudos. But in the meantime, she's smart and she is gathering her own evidence to prove that this is not her son. She knows that the behavior is not, she knows it's not him, but she needs to get proof that this is not him. So like the behavior, his appearance, those type of things. But she goes above and beyond to build her case, and she goes to the dentist, which is so smart. She takes him to the dentist. I'm telling you, she's a good one. And of course, the dentist is like, this is absolutely not your son. The dental records don't match. It's not Walter. And she's like, oh, finally somebody's listening. And that was another thing, like watching the movie. It's one thing to be researching it, but like to see her keeping her composure when nobody's listening to her, and then finally somebody does, like, oh, I can't imagine what that must have been like. And this has been months at this point where she's just, nobody is taking her seriously at all. And finally somebody's like, yeah. After she takes him to the dentist, she doesn't stop there. She goes to neighbors and she's like, look, do you think this is Walter? And they're like, no. Friends, is this Walter? They're like, no. And then she even takes them to the school, to the teachers, which obviously they would know because, Walter had been a student there for how many years? And they're like, nope, that is not your son. So she gets all of this in writing so that she has it compiled to take and show it to the police department that doesn't give two shits. So late August 1928, this is after a few weeks of having this fake Walter, she compiles all of her affidavits and everything she's gathered from everybody that's like, this is not Walter, takes it to the police department and demands recognition of the truth and some freaking accountability. And good old Captain Jones, J.J. Jones, refuses to admit that this was an error, basically gaslights her again and again, says she's delusional, says she's ungrateful, calls her a liar, calls her an unfit mother, mocks her. He's like, quote, what are you trying to do? Make fools of us all? End quote. Basically tells her that she's trying to get out of being a mom. Like, He's like, in the movie, they did a really good job of explaining how he did this, probably. He's like, you just got used to not having a child around. And then once one was returned to you, you didn't want to be a mother anymore. So you're trying to act like he's not your son so you don't have to take responsibility. Wow. Okay, JJ.
I'll be like, okay, fine. I'm not. Take him then. Take him. Take fake Walter.
Yep. But this, honestly, in the movie too, I hate to keep referencing this, but the acting was just great. We'll say that, and I'll leave it at that. Christine always keeps her composure, even if she gets a little frazzled. She's still, like, amongst all this freaking gaslighting and all this bullshit, she still tries to regain her composure because she knows that it's not going to get her anywhere to act that way. I mean, it's really not going to get her anywhere to act anyway. Let's be honest. But after she's demanding, she's like, no, this is not true. That's not true. This is not my son. I just want you to find my son. You're wasting time. You could be out there looking for my real son, and instead you're sending me home with this kid that isn't mine. So this is where the abuse of authority really comes into play too. J.J. Jones decides to take matters into his own hands here and declares that Christine is mentally unstable, issues a code 12 right there in the office. And this is basically psychiatric hold in the psych ward. They come in and they take her right there, right then, without any due process whatsoever. He just says the word and they come in and take her away. And they take her to the Los Angeles County Hospital in the psych ward there.
So again, well, the public brings the attention to the police, and that's how they retaliate, is she's psycho.
Well, the reason that he declared her psycho was just because she went in and showed him all of her paperwork and everything, like the dentist's records and all that. And she's like, this is not my son. And he's like, you're crazy. You're delusional. It is your son. I'm taking you away. You're not safe to be around. You're a danger to people. So Christine's taken to the psych ward against her will, of course, for no reason, of course. So she's held there approximately 10 days. And during this time, she is treated like absolute shit. Like, it's terrible. They are medicating her for literally no reason. It's just not good. It was hell. I can't imagine what this poor woman went through. Not only has she lost her son and is being forced to take home some random kid, now she's been put in a psych ward. I mean, nobody is listening to her. Nobody is believing her. She probably feels utterly alone and completely helpless. And at this, I mean, if that happened to me, the thoughts going through my head would probably be, this is it. Like, I'm never going to get out of here, because the more sane that you try to be in places like that, the more crazy you seem. And I feel like she would have been damned if she did and damned if she didn't. Would have been horrible. Absolutely horrible. And also being in there with actual crazy people too, you know? Ugh, gosh.
So what happens to the kid when she goes to the psych ward?
So they take him into protective custody, and they actually continue to question him. And he actually, at this time, confesses that he's not actually Walter. It's while Christine is being held against her will, they're questioning this little Walter wannabe. And he finally fesses up. And he's like, you know what? I'm actually not Walter. And so this kid ends up being Arthur Hutchins Jr. He is a 12-year-old runaway from Iowa. He's not even the same age as Walter. Not even the same age. Didn't look like him. In the movie, they say he's shorter. I don't know if that's actually a thing or not. But clearly it's not him. He's older. It's insane how they made this mix up. I I mean, clearly they just wanted to cover their asses, and they jumped on the first opportunity to do so. So this kid, I kind of feel bad for this kid too, because he was probably coerced in a way too. They probably convinced him that he is Walter. Anyway, he says that he wanted to come to California to meet his favorite actor, Tom Mix. And I didn't know who that was. I'm like, who's Tom Mix? I guess he was a really big Western films guy back in the day. So I could see a little boy wanting to come meet his hero, you know? So he's like, ooh. But that just doesn't seem like something a 12-year-old boy could come up with to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm not giving him enough credit, but like, ooh, I see an opportunity here. There's a missing boy in California. I can pretend to be him and they can come and take me. And apparently he was really unhappy and had run away from home. So he had a few reasons to want to do this. His mother had passed away and his father remarried, and he did not get along with the evil stepmom. So he ran away and then saw this opportunity, and the police came and got him and brought him to California, and he pretended to be Walter just so he could possibly meet Tom Mix.
Did his family come get him?
Yeah. They eventually come and take him home. So after he confesses, the hospital officials order her immediate release, and she's cleared of all charges of insanity. Whatever. Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Okay.
So throughout all of this, I don't know exactly when Gustav Breglib comes into the picture, but he is following this case, and he knows all about Christine, all about Walter's disappearance, and he actually plays a role somehow in her release. I don't know. This is a little murky for me, if it's because of Arthur confessing, or if it's because during the same time, this is when the Wineville stuff starts to surface in the newspapers. But initially, red flags weren't thrown. It was a headline about an illegal immigrant who had been brought down from Canada and was living on the farm, working and staying there illegally. And this opens up the whole can of worms that kind of ties everything together, which we'll get into more detail about later. So to give a little context who Gustav is, I mentioned this previously in one of our earlier episodes, but I'll say it again. He was a radio preacher and activist in LA at the time, and he was known for publicly criticizing corruption and things like that. He wanted to bring shit like this to light. So he used his voice, he used his platform to raise awareness. And he is a big part of why the public was so supportive of Christine, because he was shedding light on how corrupt the LAPD was, how they were gaslighting her and not believing her. And then once this child admitted that he wasn't Walter, I mean, they had to put that in the papers. And of course, Gustav is following all of this, and he's shedding light on it again to the public. And somewhere in the midst of this is when Christine gets released, and he keeps the pressure on. He keeps the pressure on with the public, and he is the reason for a lot of protests in Christine's and Walter's name. He was a good guy. He helped out a lot. So after Christine gets out, she files a lawsuit against the city, against James E. Nubbins Davis, Captain Jones, the LAPD, and the charge was false imprisonment. In October of 1928 is when this hearing takes place at LA City Hall. And a formal investigation is launched by the City Council Welfare Committee. Over 1,000 citizens come to this to support Christine, which is really cool. It was like an overflow spilling out into the streets. They had their signs and everything with them. And there were also loudspeakers installed outside so that they could broadcast the hearing for the people that couldn't go in. So very cool to see the community coming together. They've had enough. They've had enough of this bullshit. and they're demanding accountability.
I like it.
Yeah. So during the hearing, Christine recounts Captain J.J. Jones' insults, her forced commitment into the psych ward, and the audience they can't believe it. And of course, she's so elegant and so composed and so together. It's probably really unbelievable to see her up there saying that this ever happened to her. I mean, it was clearly an abuse of power.
Do you think it would have been different, though, if she was married to a stand-up guy and he said the same thing? So do you think the police would have believed him? Because this is just a single mom?
Maybe, perhaps. But at the end of the day, I don't think it really had anything to do with that. The only thing it had to do with was saving them the embarrassment of not being able to find her son. And then they just kept making it worse through lies and and cover-ups. So meanwhile, this is where we'll get back into the darker story that emerges from all of this. So while Los Angeles is focused on this scandal, other things are happening, and they're horrible things. So earlier in the year, it was in February, in La Puente. Okay, before I go any further, I'm going to say trigger warning. Things are getting dark. Things are getting serious. I try to be as respectful as I can, but buckle in. Here we go. February 2nd, 1928, La Puente. A headless boy was found in a ditch. And this child was never identified. They never figured out who he was. But he seemed to be of Hispanic descent. That's really the only thing they could tell about this boy. There was never a suspect identified. The child was never identified. And also that same year in May, there were the Winslow brothers and their disappearance. And these were two little boys who had vanished while walking home from a yacht club in Pomona, California. And what was really strange about these boys, again, it wasn't common for them to do something like this. So it was very out of the ordinary for them to just up and disappear. And then the parents ended up receiving letters, allegedly, from these boys. And it was so bizarre. It said, "We're going to Mexico to make a lot of money making yachts and aeroplanes. A woman gave us something to eat. Don't worry, we'll be okay. Signed, Lewis and Nelson." So it was Lewis and Nelson. And I guess these boys were really into yachts. So it was a little believable. Okay, this must be them, and they must be really trying to run off and do this. But again, it just didn't make any sense. But it was in their handwriting.
I was just about to ask, was it their handwriting?
Yeah.
So someone probably forced them to write that.
Exactly. So this is a web. This is a twisted web that's all going to connect, obviously, or I wouldn't be talking about it. But this is where the report comes in about the boy who was the illegal immigrant from Canada. And he was taken to Wineville for farm work. So officers go out to investigate, see what's going on. And they found out that this was indeed true. And this is what led them to the far darker part of the story. This leads to the Wineville Chicken Coop Murders and Gordon Stewart. But before we go on, I want to give a little bit of a background on Gordon himself. But remember, he's not the main character in this story. We hate him. Gordon Stewart Northcott was born on November 9th, 1906 in Bladworth, Saskatchewan, Canada, to parents Sarah Louise and Cyrus Northcott. During the Chicken Coop Murders investigation, Sarah Louise claimed that she was actually his grandmother. She alleged that Northcott was the result of incest between Cyrus and their daughter Winifred, but this was never legally proven. Just throwing that in there because this whole situation is fucked up. Okay? So that's just a little dip of the toe in the pool of how effed this is. Some weird shit was going on here. I don't know.
Usually does.
So Gordon had a much older sister named Winnie. She was like 18 or 19, I guess, when he was born. So there was a pretty big age gap. And she would later go on to be Sanford Clark's mother. And Sanford Clark plays a really big role in all of this as well. He is actually going to be the boy who was considered the illegal immigrant held at Wineville Farm. Essentially, 2 and 2 equals 4. It is Gordon's nephew, Sanford. So there were only the 2 siblings in the family, but that hadn't always been the case. There was a child between Gordon and his sister, a boy who actually passed away when he was 6 years old, and his name was William. So once Gordon came along, once the parents found out they were expecting him, they were not excited. They didn't want another child. They had already decided after they lost their son that they were done. They didn't want any more kids. It was just too painful. Mm-hmm. She didn't want to go through that again. So needless to say, the mother especially was not excited about the pregnancy, and she actually tried many different ways to miscarry him, but it didn't work, and she ended up having him. And he was essentially born into a family that didn't want him. And this reminded me of the soap lady story, where she resented the baby and all of that. She was never wanted. So yeah, they were not excited about Gordon. He didn't have a welcome into the world like he should have. But
that's like starting the stepping stones of
kind of
how he became what he became.
But somewhere along the way, for whatever reason, Sarah Louise kind of switched her feelings for him. And she went from not wanting him to becoming absolutely obsessed with him. Like a helicopter mom, just like the soap lady was with her kids. Like, never let him out of her sight. She was so attached that she made him sleep in the same bed.
Wow.
Yeah. And I wonder if it is because she lost a child. So maybe she was like, okay, this is my kid. And something clicked one day. And she's like, I can't let anything happen to him. Gotta protect him. I don't want him to die like my last son did. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's still kind of weird going from one extreme to the next.
Yeah. Yeah. And things get even more weird between them. Like, it's like maybe something weird was going on there. I don't know. It was alleged, never proven. Like, I guess there was a possibility that she dressed him in little girl's clothes at one point. But whether or not that's true, as Gordon got older, he was actually known for wearing more flamboyant clothing, at least for that time. It probably wouldn't be nowadays, but for that time, he was known for being a little more flamboyant. He was known to be a kind of an effeminate, I guess, very feminine. And when he was a teen, this wasn't the only thing that made him stand out. He actually had a lot of body hair that eventually got him the nickname the Ape Man. Oh. So he was teased for being feminine, being hairy. Bad combo. But aside from all the clothes and hair, he was actually very talented, and particularly on the piano. He could play classical music and really difficult songs too. He would actually go and play at small venues and earn cash from it. It wasn't much, but he was passionate about it, and apparently he was really good at it. So back in Bladworth, where he grew up, he was equally loved and hated. He had a nice car, and he was known to be rather charismatic. He liked attention, whether it was positive or negative. And even though his mother adored him and was obsessed with him, his life at home was not great. He did not have it easy. His father, I guess, abused him. Very abusive, even for that time where those types of things were unfortunately pretty common and accepted. But he had it rough as far as his dad went. And I wonder if that has anything to do with how feminine he was. Maybe his father resented him for that, but he wasn't nice to him. So he had it a little rough. But honestly, it sounds like from day one, Gordon was different. Like he just, something wasn't right.
The little screws that were loose.
Yeah. So they ended up moving to California when he was about 18 years old. And he loved it. because he was more accepted for the way he was, which I don't give two shits about because I hate him. There were also allegations that Gordon's father SA'd him as a child. But again, this was never confirmed. And of course, his parents always denied that this ever happened. But it's probably true. I mean, let's be real. So once they moved to California, things started looking up for Gordon. He started making friends, and he actually became friends with a guy named Claude, and they ended up being best friends. So they were hanging out all the time, very close. He got to know Claude's family. He was always at Claude's house, hanging out there. But the more that they were hanging out, the more that Gordon realized his interests really lied in Claude's younger brother, Philip. From a pretty early age, Gordon seemed to have an unhealthy relationship and unhealthy thoughts with younger boys, or about younger boys. It had always been a problem, even back in Canada. He was far too interested in the neighborhood kids, particularly boys. He would take them for rides in his little fancy car, and nothing was ever reported that anything happened, but most likely it probably did with the little boys in his car. Probably wasn't good.
Do you think he was always gay, or do you think his mom dressing him up with clothing made him gay? Woman's clothing.
I don't know. I have no idea. That probably played into it if it was actually true. And maybe between that and if his father actually did do things to him, maybe he was just all kinds of confused. And then getting extra attention from his mother, maybe that turned him off from women. Like it could have just been a recipe for all these things, recipe for disaster, which it usually is. And based on his mother's character in all of this, I wouldn't be surprised that all of this and more probably happened to him, because she is weird. She's weird. She's twisted. She's not a good person. So, and her relationship with Gordon is not healthy in any way, shape, or form.
So all the above.
Yes. So his realization that he's actually liking Philip is kind of the turning point for Gordon. All of his fantasies start to become realities, and he started to act on those fantasies with Philip. I'm not exactly sure how old Philip was at the time that all this was happening, but by the sounds of things, he was right in his age range, very young, 9, 10. Like by a certain age, he didn't like them anymore. No, sorry to say that. I know this is hard to hear, but here we are.
It's common with pedophiles.
So he was doing things to Philip until the family eventually caught on and pressed charges against Gordon, who was then arrested and charged with the statutory rape of Philip. But for one reason or another that I just don't know, the charges were dropped. So he didn't end up with a criminal record because of this. But even so, it did stain his reputation, because it was well known in the community. So he ended up losing all of his friends, and at this point he became isolated. So he knew that he had to make a change and leave the past behind him, start fresh, start new, whatever. Yuck. So he goes to his parents and asks them for a loan to purchase the Wineville Chicken Coop house, because he wanted to start a farm. And of course, his family was thrilled. They're like, hey, he's actually going to do something with his life. We'll support this. We're on board. Let's do it. We came to the United States for new opportunities. This is one for him. Let's do it. And this is, of course, the beginning of the end for all these poor little children and the downward spiral of Gordon. So this is where we're going to stop. This wasn't intended to be a 2-part series, but things behind the scenes are making it to where we're going to have to do that, and I think it'll be okay. So I think that's a good stopping point. Yeah, we got babies, we got police, we got all kinds of stuff happening. Welcome to Weekly Bazaar. We'll pick up next week where the patterns start to emerge, putting this horrible web of just disgusting, awful, horrific stuff that's happened to these kids that have gone missing. The Wineville farm kind of brings it all together, and we'll pick up next week with Sanford, who is Gordon's nephew, and he plays a really big role in the rest of the story. So stay tuned for part 2. Thank you all so much for joining us for another episode. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. I know this one's a little heavy and it just gets a little heavier, but stick with us. It'll be okay in the end. We promise. You can find us on all the social medias at Weekly Bazaar Podcast. You can email us if you have a story that you'd like us to share. weeklybazarpodcast@gmail.com. You can join us on Patreon, patreon.com/weeklybazaar. We upload stuff every week there. We have blooper reels, just shenanigans, get to know us, chit chat. If that sounds like something you're interested in and would like to further support us, we truly appreciate that. Thank you all so very much for just being here. We appreciate you. Stay spooky, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you next week. If it's weird,
We're going to talk about it.
bye.
Bye.